Keith Thurman wins a 12-round split decision over Danny Garcia in the big welterweight unification. He is now the unified WBA and WBC world welterweight champion, and he hands Danny Garcia his first official loss. It was a very competitive fight. It was more of a chess match than a war. It was nothing like Thurman's fight against Shawn Porter. The difference for me, the main difference, was Keith Thurman's foot speed and his foot movement. He was utilizing that to good effect. He took what Amir Khan and several other fighters like Lamont Peterson did against Danny Garcia as a blueprint, and he added his own little elements to it as well. But it was basically that same game plan of movement. Now, Khan stood with Garcia a little bit too much, but certainly other fighters like Ashley Theophane, Lamont Peterson, they moved and they gave Danny Garcia trouble because he is a flat-footed fighter for the most part. Although he can box off the back foot quite well. We saw that in the Matisse fight and several others like the Guerrero fight. But here against Keith Thurman, Thurman utilized his superior foot speed and his more creative offense. He was throwing punches from different angles, uppercuts, lead left hooks, straight right hands, doubling and tripling his jab. And although a lot of the rounds were close, my overall impression of the fight was that Keith Thurman was the ring general. He was doing more of what he wanted to do. And I do feel like he, for the most part, was landing slightly more clean, effective shots in the majority of the rounds. Now, it was a split decision. One of the judges did have it for Danny Garcia. I don't think it's implausible. They had it to Garcia by 2 rounds, that particular judge. I don't think that's implausible, but I do believe the majority of neutral people will think that Keith Thurman did deserve to win the fight. Now, as far as his manner of victory, a lot of people have been very critical of Keith Thurman over his past few fights because he ain't been knocking people out and he's been doing a lot of movement. He didn't do that much movement in the Shawn Porter fight. Bits and pieces he did, but for the most part, he was slugging with Porter and, not moving excessively. In this fight, he did move, you could even say excessively. So some people are saying he should change his name from One Time to Run Time because he ain't knocking nobody out. He's just running around the ring, Amir Khan style, and picking up points decisions. So I guess that's fair critique. People believe his power is overrated. Shawn Porter said that Keith Thurman's power is for real, but he obviously doesn't have Tommy Hearn's level punching power for a welterweight, or even Randall Bailey level punching power for that matter. So, not a historically heavy-handed welterweight, certainly, but I'm sure he's got decent power. He managed to hurt Shawn Porter, and Porter's got a good chin. So it is what it is. A lot of people won't like the manner of Thurman's victory, but he is now the unified WBC and WBA world welterweight champion. And Danny Garcia gets his first loss. Angel Garcia has to eat crow feet. I'm sure they're going to complain. I'm sure they're going to say Keith Thurman was running. But people could say that Danny Garcia ran against Lucas Matisse. People could say that Danny Garcia ran against Robert Guerrero. I mean, I'm sure Robert Guerrero did actually say that in the post-fight interview. So, it is what it is. It's tactics at the end of the day. And you have to be good enough to stop your opponent using whatever tactics he's using, as long as they're within the rules. And there's nothing illegal about using your legs and running around the ring. As long as you're engaging and actually throwing punches with it, then it's perfectly legitimate to use tactics like that. Danny Garcia just wasn't good enough to counteract those tactics in the eyes of at least 2 of the judges. So, and again, it does come down to who's landed the more clean, effective shots. And just from memory, thinking back over the whole fight, I think Keith Thurman landed slightly more clean, effective punches. I can't remember that many times when Danny Garcia actually landed flush on Keith Thurman. It wasn't often in the fight. So, yeah, I personally think the right man won. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think that Danny Garcia was hard done by. If you do, please drop it in the comment section below. Where will Keith Thurman go from here as the unified welterweight champion? Where will Danny Garcia go from here? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Thurman may be looking at the winner of Pacquiao Khan if that fight goes ahead, possibly. Or perhaps more realistically, the winner of Kell Brook versus Errol Spence Jr. And I say that because neither one of those guys are connected to Bob Arum. So just from a political point of view, it'll probably be easier for Al Heyman to do work, to do business. Al Heyman, Lou DiBella, etc. Whoever's promoting Keith Thurman. Al Heyman is the advisor. It will probably be easier for them to do business with Kell Brook if Brook beats Errol Spence. And obviously Errol Spence is an Al Heyman fighter himself. So making Thurman versus Errol Spence would be a piece of cake, I would imagine. How do you see that fight going on? Well, we should probably wait and see how Errol Spence does against Kell Brook before we talk about that. So yeah, let me know what you felt about this fight, people. Were you disappointed in the way the fight turned out? It was interesting, an interesting tactical affair for the purists, but for the casual fan, yeah, I don't think it was a great advertisement for the sport. There was quite a lot of booing throughout, but it is what it is. Let me know how you feel, people. Drop it all in the comment section below. It's Thurman, I'm out.